Hello and welcome to Literally Me, the official Ryan Gosling Rewatch podcast. I am your host, Dean's Beans, and as always, I'm joined by a man drinking a drink full of beans. It's Harlan Duffy, aka Fluffy Duffy. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. This coffee,
Yeah.
I have a new creamer. It's a
Oh yeah.
coffee cake creamer. Do you
Yeah.
guys have coffee cake, or is your coffee cake different than our coffee cake?
I don't know. I don't drink enough coffee to know what these things are.
It's not any. It's just called coffee cake because you often eat it with coffee. It
Oh,
has no coffee taste.
interesting. Isn't it funny that I knew that you were having a coffee then? I just saw a drink and I was like, I know what that guy's doing.
Okay, wait, pause.
Mhm.
I think for you, it's like, oh, he might be having tea, or he might be. If an American ever holds up a mug, odds are they're drinking coffee. Classic Dean. You know
I've
how
got
he
one.
loves his Fanta.
Um, yeah, what I'm trying to say is Harlan and I are here. We have spoken to each other about many a film, so many films, often while being recorded. And today we are talking about another film. I don't know what the point of this little inch segue was,
You
but
know
this,
what though? It was a segue.
yeah, but this is the 12th Ryan Gosling film. Because if you don't know what we're doing here, every single week we take a Ryan Gosling movie and we watch it, and then we watch his next film, and then his next film. We're on film number 12, which is
Blue
I
Valentine.
got you just as you're about to take a sip. Almost.
Were you waiting for me, you animal?
No, I wasn't. That was a
Oh,
pure coincidence. But now you've suggested that, I could just stop mid sentence and throw it over to you. Blue Valentine is a film directed by, I've got no idea how to say this guy's name, Derek Keon France. It was released in January 2010 when Ryan Gosling was 29. This is actually quite a big gap in his filmography. It's the second biggest gap in his filmography, interestingly.
and if I'm
Um,
correct, the biggest gap is after like kind of a little bit after the Pines movie, I forget, because
no,
he
no, so the biggest gap is after First Man. Um, he doesn't do anything until The Grey Man.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Hmm.
there you go. Um, the yeah, but that's like COVID as well. I think obviously he stopped making
Oh,
and then COVID.
yeah.
Um, I have a memory somewhere in my brain of him taking a break from acting at this point because his films weren't like doing very well. But I didn't
Mm.
like try and check that before this.
Um,
He did a 3 year absence. Um, um, Here we go. Yeah, he didn't enjoy making. Um, there's a film here. So he was. Oh, here we go. Gosling was scheduled to begin filming The Lovely Bones in
oh yes, I know
2007.
that story.
However, he left production 2 days before filming began because of creative differences and was replaced by Mark Wahlberg. I always think those two are so similar.
I know
Gosling,
the creative differences.
well, I think it says it here. So
Oh,
before shooting began, Gosling gained 60 pounds or 27 kilograms in weight and grew a beard to appear older. Walsh then began to feel he was not right. It was our blindness, the desire to make work no matter what. Gosling later said, "We didn't talk very much during the pre production progress, which was the problem. I just showed up on set and I had gotten it wrong. Then I was fat and unemployed."
yeah. Darn.
So that's why he took a 3 year gap, but he returned with a little film called Blue Valentine. Um, he made 5 films in 3 years, in 2 years, sorry, which is crazy.
Wow.
But anyway,
He was working.
he was working hard. So we've got, these 5 films. This is number one, Blue Valentine. Um, it was, what do you think the budget was?
I guess the budget was maybe 2.5 million.
Good guess. It was a singular $1 million.
Okay. I was thinking maybe a little bit lower like that, but with Michelle Williams and Ryan Gosling, I was like
Yeah,
maybe, but I don't
yeah.
think I think this movie catapulted both of their names in the like prestige
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. I would agree. It made 16 million at the box office, so not amazing, but that's a very good profit. It had 87% with critics on Rotten Tomatoes and 77% with the audience. Which score do you agree with more?
I gotta go with the critic score here, I think.
I think critics too, but but I wouldn't disagree with either score, you know.
Hmm.
I'm not I'm not, offended by either of them. What would
So,
you Oh, sorry. Before we jump into the film itself, this film came
yeah.
out in 2010. What was
Oh,
your favorite film of 2010, Harlem?
so I had to do some looking around.
Can I guess?
Here, let me pull up this for you, make sure.
Can I guess what your favorite film is?
Yeah, go ahead and make a guess.
Is it Fred the movie?
It's not, but to be honest, well, like looking for films, I did not see that. And if I had, it probably would have been at number one.
No, the second one is the better one when there's the vampire. Is that what happens in Fred 2?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And the third one, he goes to camp.
Yeah,
And I don't know if there's a TV show after that, I think.
yeah.
But no, I'll have to go. My favorite movie of 2010, there is not a lot of competition putting that out there, but I think I'm gonna have to go Shutter Island.
I've never seen Shutter Island.
It's fun. It's it's like one of those movies where you have to like go along with the character and try to figure out the mystery before he
That,
does.
that's a
I just,
classic Harlan movie.
I just get a kick out of those.
No, you really like those movies. I think my favorite, I mean, there's a very good film called Four Lions, which I can guarantee you've never watched.
Mm-mm.
It's a real interesting film. It's like a parody comedy thing of these like four guys in the UK who are like in ISIS.
Oh,
But
jeez.
it's a very funny film. I think my actual favorite is Megamind.
You're not even Scott Pilgrim?
I like Scott Pilgrim. It is probably my least favorite Edgar Wright film. I like it, but
I think I'd put it above At World's End.
yeah, fair enough. I don't. I really like it. It was a contender, but I think I prefer Megamind to Scott Pilgrim.
I love Mega Man. I quote that constantly, and nobody even knows I'm quoting it, dude.
Go on. That's me with Edgar Wright. Give us your go-to Megamind quote.
Usually I say I'm going to school,
Oh yeah.
or I go, oh hello,
What's your
or
go-to Blue Valentine quote?
that's not fun. I just start playing my ukulele.
Do you know what my go-to Blue Valentine quote is?
What is that?
This is how people laugh in the future.
Oh, that is pretty.
That was a good bit.
Okay, wait, okay. We did skip something, and I think it's important that we get to it before we move on.
Go on.
What this movie's about.
This I was pointing at you to tell me a plot synopsis. We're on the same page.
So, when I was watching this movie,
Yeah.
like let's say in Knives Out, when
Mhm.
the main character's name was Harlan,
Yeah.
or the old man,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Christopher
Yeah.
said my name, that was fun. It
Yeah.
was fun. This movie, main character's name's Dean. And I'm
Yeah.
gonna be straight up. Dean's not a good dude in this movie.
Yeah.
Kind of an unfortunate one to have
He's
the.
not. He's not the one.
No, no, no.
Like
These are both
he's
real
he's
people.
not in like the bottom five Ryan Gosling characters though. I would
Yeah,
say there's
that's
a
true.
lot of other guys I'd rather not be called Dean than this guy. Go
So,
on.
anyways, I have the Rotten Tomatoes synopsis pulled up, but it doesn't necessarily do the movie justice. So I'm gonna say it and then put in my little 2 cents.
Yeah.
So Dean, played by Ryan Gosling, and Cindy, played by Michelle Williams, live a quiet life in a modest neighborhood. To the casual observer, everything appears normal. if a bit subdued. But a closer examination reveals a couple caught in a downward spiral. They appear to have the world at their feet at the outset of their relationship. However, this lack of ambition and her retreat into self-absorption causes potentially irreversible cracks in their marriage. So that's technically correct. That's what the movie's about. But what is interesting about the movie is half of it ish is them falling in love, and the other half is them
Yeah,
falling out of
yeah,
love. And that's kind of the idea.
and it's like intercut. So like
Yeah.
we'll cut from the present day when they're married and arguing, and then we'll cut to them falling in love when they first meet each other, and blah blah blah.
Before anything else, am I having any mic issues? Are we good?
No, you're good.
All right, cool. So when we've had a little bit of a hiatus recently, but when we were last talking about this movie, I told you like, good luck. This good movie's gonna make you sad.
Yeah.
Did this movie make you sad?
Yes, I think like a better word would be like deflated. When
This movie messed me up for the rest of the day. Like
no, same.
I don't think I'll ever want to rewatch this movie.
No, I did hate watching this movie. It's just so like
It breaks you.
You finish it, and I just felt like in a way I kind of just felt nothing because I was just so like not nothing, but I felt so numb of being like, oh, this was just not pleasant.
But I do think, but that doesn't mean the movie is bad by any means. It's a really good movie.
It's what the film's trying to do.
Yeah. I think the thing I like most about this movie is how the characters feel real. Like they don't fall into any stereotypes. It's when you see something getting set up and you expect it to fall a certain way because like, oh, that's how it would in the movies, but it actually happens pretty similarly to how you would think it would happen in real life.
Yeah. But I think a big part of that, actually, we'll talk about that later. So, what are your general thoughts on the film? Like, just
I do enjoy this movie, but I think, it really, when it comes down to is the performances in this movie. Like when it comes, it's Ryan Gosling and Michelle Williams just acting their ass off.
Yeah.
And I think there are some. I think the film has really strong writing. I think there's this one scene where Michelle Williams is dancing and Ryan Gosling's playing the ukulele.
Yeah.
It's one of the most. It's melancholy, but it's a good sort of, Do
you want a fun fact about that scene?
Yeah, and I could throw another fun fact at you too.
Before that scene was filmed, the director made sure that neither of them had seen each other's dancing / ukulele / singing skills before, so their surprise at each other's performances were like genuine.
So this movie, I think, is especially special for Michelle Williams.
Yeah.
Because before this, I believe she was married and had a kid.
Yeah, so she was married and had a kid,
with Heath Ledger. And he tragically died. So this was sort of a healing experience for her. And if I'm correct, didn't like Ryan Gosling and Michelle Williams like live together?
Yeah, almost? So I was going to get into this a bit in like when you talk about the direction, but I did record some facts about this. So let me find it. So yeah, it was originally supposed to shoot in 2008, but it was delayed due to Heath Ledger's death. Oh no, sorry, they weren't married. They were dating, but she was the mother to his daughter, Matilda. But Michelle Williams and Ryan Gosling actually lived together in a house in Carbondale, Pennsylvania for 30 days while the film was being shot. They struggled with the real stresses of having to share a bathroom and do the dishes 3 times a day. Their grocery budget was based on Dean's salary as a house painter and Cindy's as a nurse, $200 every 2 weeks. So they had $400 for the whole month. Gosling stated that it was hard for him and Williams to take off their wedding bands when it was over.
That's so sweet.
It's so,
This movie's so heavy, guys. This
but
movie's
that's the
so
thing.
heavy.
That's the thing. I'm known for hating method acting, and I don't hate method acting as an idea, but it's the kind of thing where I'm like, if someone says they're method acting, they're being a they're being an awful person. No one ever method acts as a nice dude, and it's just something I
Mhm.
associate with Jared Leto. But something like this, I think, is such an interesting way to do it because we'll talk about it more later, but it does get a lot more of a real feeling relationship between the leads.
Yeah. So I think we're safe to move on because I think where the bulk of this episode is going to be is talking about Gosling and Michelle Williams.
Yeah.
So with that, let's move on to our thoughts on the gods.
Can we talk about the hair first?
Yeah, we can.
Because what this film does, as we said, a lot of there's what? How much time do you think is in that gap? Like 5 years, 6 years? It's just however old
Um,
that his daughter is.
yeah, I'm gonna guess like 4 or 5. Five. Let's say
Yeah,
5.
yeah. So Gosling has got a completely different look in at the start and the end, and it is just a tool to make sure you know how old people are. This is something I remember telling you about Rebel Moon 2, but I'm going to bring it up again because it does make me laugh. In Rebel Moon 2, there's a bit when all the characters sit around a table and they tell stories, and then you get a flashback. And every single character during their flashback, if they have short hair in the like current time, they have long hair in the flashback. And if they have long hair in the current time, they have short hair in the flashback. And it really made me laugh. But that's just what I think now when I'm like, they use hair as a storytelling technique. It works here. So Ryan Gosling looks like classic Ryan Gosling from this era when he's playing the younger version of himself.
Dare I say prime Ryan Gosling? Like
Uh,
he
yeah,
his slicked hair.
like I think there's like it's a bit more blonde than you're used to seeing Ryan Gosling at this time as well.
Sure.
Um, but then the present day Ryan Gosling is such a look. Like they've given him a real receding hairline. Um, he has a not very nice pair of glasses and just a dirty beard.
Yeah.
But I do think prime Ryan Gosling in the past. Like it's so he can't. Yeah, it's very much like a drive Ryan Gosling look. I think.
No, it's a La La Land Ryan Gosling look.
Yeah, actually, I think you're right. I think La La Land is a bit better because it's a bit more like trimmed, but
This guy, Drive. How many times have you seen Drive?
not as many as you. But
Obviously.
yeah, I just the way they managed to make him look so old and not as good
Yeah.
um works. But other than that, now we talked about the main thing. What do you think of everything else involving Ryan Gosling in this film?
So he does bring his iconic Ryan Gosling charm.
Yeah,
Um, something I think Ryan something I think Ryan Gosling's character does a little bit better than Michelle Williams' character. And I
mm,
don't think it's necessarily um I don't know, there could be an argument against this, but I think just the writing for his character is stronger in the sense of so when you go into the flashback into the past, which is how flashbacks work, um you can see like them planting seeds as to
yeah,
why he's acting this way in the future. And I think something that they do really well with his character is like it would be easy to make it like, oh, he's this young bachelor, and then he in the future he's this grumpy man. And he
yeah.
is kind of, but you can tell that there's like just like there were sprinkles of the grumpy man
Mm.
in the flashbacks and the flash forwards, there are sprinkles of this young bachelor. So
It's
yeah.
funny because he also does have like he as an older version of his character does have a lot more joy than his wife. And
Hmm.
it's the sort of thing when like the relationship he has with his daughter and that sort of thing. And also just that like the bit I said earlier on about this is how people laugh in the future. I don't know why that really
Yeah.
stuck with me, but I've been thinking about that a lot. That's
Because it's also heartbreaking because like that line, when he says it in the movie, you know that he's doing it to connect with his wife a little bit more. You know what I,
Yeah,
like he's trying to make her feel better, but he's just doing it in the way that makes him feel better. And you know that's not what she, you know what I mean?
yeah,
The movie does a lot of things like that you don't really see movies do, whereas in real life it's almost constant. So
yeah. Um, should we move on from Zagoz?
yeah, let's talk about. I mean, really, the only other star in this is Michelle Williams.
Yeah, Michelle Williams, I think, is really great. I think there are one moment I would like to highlight, and I knew it was going to happen. Um, is when at the very start of the film, when she pulls up on the side of the road when the song is playing.
Mm,
And then she has that moment. And I knew that song was going to come back later on in the film. But I really like like moments of this character because she has changed more in the gap than Ryan Gosling has. But I think it's you can see why. And I think the performance she gives. So for those of you that haven't seen the film, um, she in the flashback she gets pregnant from a guy she was dating, and then she immediately after that meets Ryan Gosling and starts dating him, and then she goes in to have an abortion. She backs out at the last minute because she decides she can't go through with it, and then Ryan Gosling steps up and he's like, I'm gonna help you raise this child, and then they get married, and it's really sweet. That abortion scene just was so
yeah,
real and just so uncomfortable to watch. Like she did so well in that scene, and I hated it.
yeah. There's a lot of that in this
Yeah,
movie.
that scene in particular, I think, was my like least favorite to watch though. Like
I
it did
think
feel so real.
I think my least favorite to watch was the one scene where they were like in the bathroom in the future thing.
Yeah,
You know, I didn't
yeah.
like that one.
No, I don't like that one either, to be fair. But that she did really well in that scene. I think she does a real good job in the past as well.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I think her character is, you know, again written in a way that seems very real, and you can tell that she like it just that you from what like she tells the doctor, and we learn a lot about her story without it being directly addressed,
Yeah,
and then it kind of instead of it like I don't know. Instead of it being like sprinkled, like, oh, this is what she might be in the future, it seems a lot more linear. Like, obviously, that's how she's gonna feel towards these things, rather,
yeah,
whereas like Ryan Gosling's how he has changed, like reactionary. Hers
yeah.
is more like this, and her just being frustrated with another person that can't
No,
grow
I got
up
what
as
you mean.
well.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's
So
heavy, dude.
it's what are we talking about next?
What next movie or the next
Next subject.
next subject is our thoughts on the plot.
I okay. Can I give you my thoughts on like the plot and the writing and that sort of thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
What I won't say I enjoyed. What I really appreciated in this film is the fact that there's no there's a few things. So number one, there's no big catalyst for what's happened. There's not like, oh, these guys are going
Mm,
through a real marital problem because one person made one mistake. It really does feel like you have just got to a natural end. It's like when you throw a ball. Like the arc of the ball is not disturbed at all. We just get to the point where the ball hits the ground. And
yeah.
and I think the fact that there was no big catalyst for what had happened made it a lot tougher to watch. And in a similar vein, I think the fact that like you cannot blame one. There's not one character. I would argue personally, there's not one character who's like more unlikable or like Ryan
Yeah.
Gosling does the more regrettable things in the end, I think. But
But it makes sense.
yeah,
I
you see how his character was driven to do those things, and like when you watch the film, you're like, man, this side of the relationship really messed up. It's like it's not one sided at all.
no, the movie does a really good job kind of we're taking one beat to be like, look at how Ryan Gosling messed up, and then it
Yeah,
gives another to be like, but this is why he's redeemable. And the same way with Michelle Williams, it's like
yeah,
this is what she did, but you can't really call her a bad guy because this is her backstory. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
so
I do appreciate that you keep calling him Ryan Gosling and not Dean.
you know what? We've watched so many movies, dude. We watched so many of these movies. I cannot keep up with the names.
I think when we end, we should do like a quiz of you get a name and then you got to guess which Ryan Gosling character that is.
Okay, Leland. Uh,
Uh, Lars. Uh, Ken.
um,
Um,
but I think that's so when it comes to the plot and the writing,
yeah,
we've addressed this before, but it's the little moments
yeah,
that make this movie work. And it's easy to like when you see it on screen to be like, oh, this is, these seem like real people, but it's so complex
yeah.
that I think um it's really impressive.
Yeah, I think this film would have been a lot more easier to digest if you could have pointed at something and been like, they did this wrong or this person messed up here. But instead, there's so many small moments and it's all so natural that it just makes it feel so much more real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shall we move on?
Yeah, so you said earlier that you had some talking points for this category of discussion,
Yeah.
but our next one is thoughts on the direction.
Yeah. So I want to tell you something that you might know, which I found out when I was looking for facts about this film.
Okay.
Let me find the exact thing. So Michelle Williams was first attracted to starring in this film because she liked the script. Just before shooting began, though, the director told Williams that he was no longer interested in sticking to the script and that he wanted Williams and co-star to improvise their scenes. This unnerved Williams, but Gosling said he did not mind improvising as he had trouble remembering his lines. So a lot of this stuff was improv, and I think you can kind of once I knew that, I could tell.
Mm. I didn't know that. Maybe I knew at one point, but
Yeah.
not going into it.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of makes sense, and kind of I think it works more than it being written because like
Yeah.
what I just said, there's so many small moments where if it was 100% written, it would probably have to be one of the best scripts of all
Yeah.
time.
And it's the same kind of thing where I don't think them improvising would have worked super well if they weren't also in this situation when they were living together. Like I think if you're making them live together and like give them this budget for food and blah blah blah, I think the only way it kind of that like that isn't worth it if you're not improvising the lines if you and I don't
Mm,
know, like we don't know how much of it was scripted and how much it was improvised. But do you want to hear another fact which I think is pretty
sure.
messed up in like a interesting way? Let me find it. So um when filming the argument scenes, the director gave instructions to Michelle Williams and Ryan Gosling individually without the knowledge of the other in order to create more tension between Dean and Cindy. For Williams, he would instruct her to try to leave the room, use any way to break out of the argument with Gosling. For Gosling, he would tell him to use any means to persuade Williams to get her attention. Gosling stated it was a new and interesting process as it became a tug of war game on set.
And what scene was this for?
This it didn't say in particular what scene, it just said for argument scenes. But I think
Mm,
the last scene, it was after I read this fact, but you could kind of really tell because she was doing anything she could to get out of there, and Gosling was like really being like, I'll do anything you want, blah blah blah. And like that
yeah,
scene was, hard to watch.
it was hard to watch, and I think maybe if anything, I would have preferred to know that just so I had another thing to think about other
Yeah.
than because it's tough. Um, so do you have any more thoughts on the direction of this movie?
No,
I
that
think
also that finally something interesting they did was they did all the past scenes and then they did all the future scenes.
that I mean I guess that does make sense. I
Yeah.
think just in terms of like prosthetics that they had to do for
Yeah,
Ryan
yeah.
Gosling.
You'd think, a lot of times films wouldn't do that, but yeah, it makes sense and it works. Cool, cool, cool.
Um, but yeah, I think a part of the reason why the chemistry is so good in this movie is the director and how he was able to put these actors together
Yeah,
and make such uh safe space, I guess, and
yeah.
making them so uh
But also gaslighting them.
and also gaslighting them. But with the director putting so much emphasis on having the characters have as much chemistry as possible,
Yeah.
I think that does bring us to our wild card.
Welcome, welcome.
So the
Go
wild
back to
card,
the real somber topic.
yeah. So last week, do we or it was chemistry thoughts, right?
Let me have a look. Last week, what was the last one we talked about? Lars and the Real Girl, and it was The Message.
Oh, okay. So this week we had
Actually,
chemistry.
we actually haven't done chemistry since The Notebook. Can I quickly can I tell you what happened during my viewing experience of this film?
Go for it.
Was the film ended and I was kind of sitting there, kind of like trying to process it, staring at the screen. And during the credits, Amazon Prime popped up because I watched this on Prime, and it said,
Uh,
"Would you like to watch The Notebook?" And then I was just like, "Yes, I do want to watch The Notebook."
did
But
you?
no. But it was like such a moment where it was like this other film came up, and I was like, "Yeah, man, I wish I just watched The Notebook."
That's really funny.
Anyway, chemistry.
The chemistry in this movie, I think, might be one of the. I think you could use the Notebook. The Notebook has good chemistry, right?
Yeah,
But this one, I just feel like it's on a whole other level.
this feels a lot more real than something like The Notebook.
Yeah, and I do think I think it's hard to specifically compare the chemistry for like this or than the Notebook
Yeah,
because the Notebook, it's obviously a romantic story with some of the tropes that you would find. But
yeah.
with this movie, it's chemistry and like I would argue it's more impressive. I would argue the chemistry is better in this than in the Notebook.
Yeah,
Just
I would agree. It feels a lot more real. Like I do remember complaining about The Notebook that it was a bit iffy at times.
yeah, and it's just kind of be like it's the Notebook is like an iconic romance movie,
Yeah.
but this is kind of like an iconic romance story. I wouldn't say iconic.
Yeah, I get
Well,
what you're trying to say. Do you
um,
want to hear? Sorry for interrupting.
no, go ahead.
Here is a similarity between The Notebook and this film. At one point, Ryan Gosling climbs something and dangles off it until his love interest agrees to something. What one don't you remember?
This one, Blue Valentine. What does he do?
When she says she's pregnant.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, he's not. Yeah, I guess he is, but he's not hanging.
No, he's not quite. But he climbs a fence and he's like, "Hey, tell me what's wrong." And then she's like, "I'm pregnant," and he's like, "Oh."
Yeah. Oops. Um, but yeah, the chemistry in this movie is great. They, well, we've said earlier, they've done all these measures to make it as real as possible,
Yeah.
and I think it works really well.
Yeah, I agree, Harlan.
And it it works almost too well because you gotta spend the rest of the day recovering from this movie.
No,
When did you watch this?
it was too much. And I feel like I'm gonna have to do some recovering from this conversation. And I have to do that after most conversations with you, but that's for different reasons.
When did you watch this movie?
When?
When? Yeah.
Yeah, it was the evening. I did what happened
Today?
was so no, it was the
Yesterday?
no Wednesday and today is Friday. Um, so I watched it 2 days ago. I watched it in the evening, and then as soon as the film finished, I left the house to go and meet my friend. And the entire walk there, I was like trying to like reassociate with the world because I was like, I'm gonna get to him, and I'm gonna be like, hello. But I was like trying to snap back to reality. Yeah, and I
I
was thinking about it quite a bit the next day as well.
I watched. So this is my second time seeing the movie. I
Yeah.
will not be watching it for a third
No,
time.
no. I don't think I'll ever watch this film again.
Um, but I watched it like a good week ago,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I think I just gotten over it, and now we're reopening now. So I I'm interested here because earlier in the recording, when we were looking at the Rotten Tomatoes score,
Yeah.
we there was an 86 critic, a
Yeah.
77 fan.
Yeah.
But you say you agree more with the critic, but you fall somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
So with that,
hmm
rate this film on a 10, Dean.
Good segue. Good segue, Harlan. I
Thank you, thank
think.
you.
Oh, I don't know if I'd go with an 8 or an 8.5. I'm looking at previous films here. I gave an 8 to, funnily enough, The Notebook. I haven't given an 8.5 yet. So if I gave it, I think I'm going to go with an 8. Um, I don't know. What are you
So
giving it?
before I say what I'm going to give it, I just want to interrogate you a little bit more.
Go on.
What about this movie keeps it from a 9 or a 10?
I just don't like it.
It's it
um,
literally just the way it makes you feel.
no, it's a good
Which is
question. It's a good question. I'm trying to formulate words. I don't know.
because it's the pacing of the movie's good.
Yeah.
The writing is good. The acting is good. Everything about it is good. But I do feel that just the overall message and tone of the movie is so upsetting that it keeps me from a. I think I'm gonna have to go 8.5.
Do you know what I genuinely think about this film? This
What do
feels
you say? You're
this.
frozen for a second.
Am I back?
Okay, you're back.
This is what I think about the film. It's like an interesting experiment in the way that it was filmed, and they were like, we're going to make these two, we're going to try and make something as realistic as possible. They're going to live together for 30 days. I'm going to tell them different things in different rooms. I'm going to bring them together and I'm going to film it. And in doing that, they made a film which felt really, really real, and it felt really, really raw. And I cannot fault it for doing that because I think it really excelled at those things. But personally, I'd like in a lot of ways, I liked watching it as if it was this experiment when they were like, how real can we make these guys feel about each other? When in terms of it being an actual film, like I when it's not in a film, the be all and end all of a film's quality isn't whether it's real, whether like the what is happening on screen feels really, really real. And I think it really succeeds at being real. I keep saying the word real now, but that's not the be all and
Fair.
end all. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I do. And I do think if we're rating the film
Mm-hmm.
from how well it succeeds at what it's trying to do,
Yeah.
it's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
But that's not all that the movie is. And I think in terms of it being an actual story, like it doesn't necessarily leave you feeling not even happy, but like um you want more from it by the end
Yeah,
because it's not because it is real and it's real
I
life.
think the performances are complex and the character not the character motivations, but the character arcs are quite complex. And there's some interesting subject matter, but the message itself is, like, I would argue, pretty simple. And I think that's a downside. If a film is going to be this upsetting, I want to take something away from it. And after watching this film, you don't feel like you've like learned anything or like come to any realizations.
I think the only realization that you come to is like, oh, sometimes things don't work out.
Yeah, that's what I
Kind of.
mean. I think my
It's
complaint.
more the message is more complex than that, but like it is it though.
Yeah, yeah, and like I'm looking at this a list of Ryan Gosling films, like something like The United States of Leland or The Believer. I'm not saying they're better films than this, but I'm just saying when like they're not the most happy films in the world, But once
Mm,
you finished it, I think you do have more to think about. Where after watching this film, I wasn't really thinking about what happened. I was just constantly like, man, that's upsetting.
yeah, it's surprising, but I think it's hard because it's I feel like the most difficult critique of this movie is why it isn't perfect. You know, like
Yeah,
it's just the way you feel about it at the end.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
think brings it down from a 10.
Yeah.
And I think I would give it an 8.5. You'll give it an 8. And where does that where
I'm not 100%. I'm looking at what other films I've given eights.
'cause I
I
think it's
think I'm
better than
gonna
the
have to go
notebook.
8.5. I'm gonna go 8.5, which does that means this film is on level with Half Nelson. That's what I mean. That's a good example of a film that's really upsetting, but you have a lot more to think about.
Mm.
So at the moment, this film is um joint second of with Half Nelson, The Fall Guy, and Blue Valentine.
All right.
But we still have to give the Goz a rating. And on this, another score out of 10 that we come to agreement on how good Ryan Gosling is in this part.
So I think he has a little bit of an edge here than other movies because baseline he has a very good performance.
Yeah. And I
But
think the fact that it's a lot of it is improv,
yes,
you get a bump for that.
100%.
So what do you want some previous numbers?
Yeah, throw some my way.
So the highest we've given is a 9.5, and that's Lars and the Real Girl. Personally, I think Lars and the Real Girl does beat this in terms
Yeah,
of,
I think so.
but the nines we've given a 9 in the Notebook, and then that's the only 9 we've given actually. I think a 9.
Yeah.
If you want some 8.5s, we've given 8.5s for Half
I
Nelson.
know, no, I think it's hard because I think he's definitely better in this in the notebook.
Yeah. I don't think it's a 9.5 though.
I don't think so.
No.
So I guess I'm comfortable giving it a 9.
Yeah, it is better than the Notebook if you're doing an overall thing, but
Yeah.
you know.
Yep. It's how it works.
Next week we're talking about All Good Things. Have you seen this film?
I have not seen this film.
It stars Kirsten Dunst, and there's an actor in it as the lead. What's his name?
Ryan Reynolds.
No, it's Ryan Gosling. You sleep.
Oh,
And
my bad.
and then we're getting after that we're getting into some good stuff because then we've got Drive and then Crazy Stupid Love. But anyway, All Good Things next week. Please, can
All
it
good
just be
things.
all good things? I'm just we need to be
Do
uplifting.
you know the Rotten Tomatoes score?
Yeah, I've got it. Do you want me to tell you? It's
I got it up.
35
Spoiler
and
alert, it's not great.
37%. So it's in the 30s.
Uh-oh. Dean's frozen on me again. Would it be funny if I just ended the podcast when he's not able to talk? He could be talking, and I think the recording will show that he's talking, but it'd be funny because he's probably quiet right now, panicking, trying to figure out why the Wi-Fi isn't working. So I have complete control of this podcast. He can't stop me from doing anything. Oh, he's back.
I purposely didn't speak that entire time, but you did nothing with your freedom.
I know.
Okay.
It would have been really funny. That's just like when you were frozen. I just hear the like I say like goodbye and I say adios, and then it just ends.
Yeah,
That would have been really funny.
but you
Oh
didn't do
well.
it. So, adios, guys. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I hope everyone can go hug a loved one because
This movie calls for it. That's for sure.
um, we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Goodbye.